Hello everyone and welcome back to Passion Sundays, the best way to end the week and start another. Our guest today is phenomenally passionate about the leadership and reinvention and innovation space. Kate Sweetman is the previous editor at Harvard Business Review and the current co-author of REINVENTION, Accelerating Results in the Age of Disruption. Kate, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
I really appreciate
it. Completely delighted.
Pleasure is mine.
I love your work.
Thank you very much. So the first obvious question, passion, how important is it in the age of disruption?
Well, it's a fantastic question because actually, and I hadn't thought about it until I was talking with you earlier, but honestly, I think there's nothing more important than passion if you're going to be reinventing. Because reinventing, the way we describe it, is you've got to take a look at every piece of your business and everything's up for grabs in terms of change. If you want to take your business to a new place, and you need passion to get through that, because that's a huge undertaking.
Okay, awesome. And it's very easy to say you need passion and, it's important for disruption. And especially when you're talking in the corporate world, it sounds like a taboo more than an actual thing. How do you find passion in the corporate world?
That's a great question, because the corporate world is much more a left brain sort of place. Yeah. And in fact, an excess of passion might be a little suspect, yes. Right? But, and so I think that's something that we actually need to change. And in our work, we do address that, because we actually have a huge emotional component in our work, because we say that if you want to make reinvention happen, the first place you have to go is where you're not, where you're not passionate, but it's actually dissatisfaction. You have to have an emotional reaction to where you are and say, this isn't good enough.
Interesting.
It's not the best we can be. We might even be in danger, but at a minimum, it's not our highest calling. And then you need to say, well, what is our highest calling? What is our vision? And those are two actually quite emotional things. And then you need to say, aha, here's where we're going to go. And it's not just me as the leader. It's me getting everybody, getting a common spirit. We call it shared energy, but you might call it shared passion around where we need to go and how we're going to get there.
And how do you put a framework around the whole disruption and disruptive innovation in context of passion or not? But obviously passion is needed there. But how does that fit within a framework? Because it's very easy to talk about abstract stuff. Yeah. The trick is, how do you distill all of that into a best-selling book? And then how do you take that framework and apply it in the business world?
Actually, I love that question, because that's absolutely right. And, if we have a framework, I have a mentor, his name is Dave Ulrich, and he said, give me a framework and I can do something with that. And that's absolutely true. So the way that we go about this is we actually have taken the process of change and we've made it into a formula, which starts with dissatisfaction and goes to focus and then says, okay, we know where we want to get to. Now, how do we align everything around that? What are all the different pieces that need to come together? It's a very complicated thing. And then how do we get going? And then all that, if you think of it as an equation, so dissatisfaction times vision times alignment of all the different things that need to come together times getting started on execution, all that is animated by leadership. And so leadership is the thing that blows passion and life into what it is you're trying to do. Otherwise, it's a pretty dry exercise, but it's somebody with passion, energy, vision, excitement, persuasiveness, influence, who keeps everybody going when the going gets tough.
I like that.
Yeah.
You've segued nicely into my next question about leadership. I know you're also a best-selling author of another book about leadership. How important it is for a leader to be passionate? Oh,
there's especially in this day and age. In fact, when Shane, my co-author and partner, and I sat down a couple of years ago and said, okay, what are we going to do differently about leadership? Because we've both been in this leadership development area. We've both been in the change area, because that's what leaders do, for quite a long time. But we felt there was this sea change. There was this something different. There's something about this era in which we live where things are different. And so, we're both students of leadership. I used to be an editor at HBR. I've done all the reading. He's done all the reading. And we said, you know what? It really comes down to, in this day and age, with all this change and all this shifting and all this confusion and all this turmoil and all this acceleration, that there's really only two ways you can be a leader anymore. You have two options. One is you're a leader accelerator who helps everybody internally move faster than the speed of external change, get ahead of the speed of change. And that takes a lot of passion because you've got to get people seeing a future that they haven't experienced yet. You know? Or you're a leader decelerator. You're somebody who kind of gets in the way of the energy of the organization and doesn't allow it to move forward. So you're either that passionate leader accelerator who's bringing, breathing life into the organization, breathing life into the team, helping people to see the possibilities, right? Or you're somebody saying, well, hang on, not so sure. Let's study this some more. Is this in my best interest? All those kinds of things.
That's old school corporate, obviously.
Very old school corporate.
Covering your
worrying about your silo, worrying about your silo, worrying about your politics, worrying about things that have nothing to do with the mission and that the company is really about.
I'm gonna push back a little bit. As much as I love anybody who endorses anything I say about passion, but I don't like to take face value, and it's easier said than done.
Sure.
I have the highest level of passion I can imagine, and I go into an organization and I'm like, run, let's do it. But it's not easy to transfer that to the layers as you move. And, it kind of, as it trickles down, it phases off also. You start getting less and less and less passion. How do you actually take that passion from being just a passionate leader into an actually leader who's truly accelerating that passion?
Yeah, that's a great question because it's a whole process as well. And I say it's a process because you can break it down. And that's something that we do. But one, I think, one is communication clarity is huge. Clarity of what it is you're trying to accomplish is really, really huge. The second thing is clarity around who's around you is really, really huge because you've got to evaluate the people who will be going you through on this journey. I mean, Jim Collins would say, get the right people on the bus, right? So they have to have the skill set. They have to have the mindset. Well, first they need to have the mindset. Then they have to have the skills and tools. But they also have to have the passion. They have to believe. And the thing is, you need to evaluate that as much as anything else. So then sometimes some tough choices need to be made. And then further in our organization, communicate. In fact, we just met with a client last week, and we're even talking about taking this mission vision thing. How do you communicate it, to the factory floor? And so there we actually have some graphical solutions that we use to take it even just out of words into image so that people can start to see sort of where we were and where we want to get to and be part of the whole thing.
So if I'm dealt a not very good hand with people that might not be as passionate, what you're saying is I have to quickly differentiate who fits on the journey and who I have to let go very quickly.
Yeah. I have a great example. Well, first of all, I mean, this is ancient history for most people, but I mean, that's what Lou Gerstner did at IBM, and that's what he turned around. I had a lot of experience at Verizon, which is an American telecom company. It was a merger. Two different companies come together. People feel like winners and losers. And a new culture emerges. And after 2 years, Ivan Seidenberg, who's a great CEO, said to the 80,000 managers, if you can believe these are big companies, he said, if you want to stay, stay. If you want to go, go. And I'll give you a year's severance. 25,000 people said, I'm leaving out of 80,000 people. And he said, God bless you. Off you go. And you know what? The company moved on. There were a lot of predictions that would leave a lot of holes and nothing would work. But what he wanted were people who wanted to stay.
Agreed. Nobody wants deadwood.
That's what he got.
Nobody wants deadwood.
Exactly. And that's what he got. And you know what? It's one of the great success stories.
Love it.
Yeah.
So in the context of people leaving and changing and causing disruption, I love this. How important it is for a leader to be okay with some mess along the way to be able to reach that disruptive innovation.
It's inevitable.
Yeah.
It's inevitable because as much as you know where you want to go, the fact is you haven't been there before.
True.
And so you are feeling your way, you're learning your way, you're doing your best, you're trying to anticipate, you've got your plans, but the best laid plans.
Yeah.
You have to be able to deal with ambiguity. You have to be able to deal with uncertainty. You have to deal with things that are not planned. It really is the opposite of, the organization of the past, where you could predict the future based on the past.
I see. And probably one last question is why reinvention rather than innovation? Because, I love how you talked about reinvention and there's a hidden message there. I'm reading between the lines.
Oh, that's a great question. I think the word innovation is really associated with products and services, sort of what you're offering to the world, design, things like that. We're talking about the corporation, or the family-owned enterprise. We're talking about reinventing really who you are from the self-concept, perhaps, of, who we are in this world to how we go about navigating in the world. So it really is a reinvention, not just an innovation.
Understand.
Innovation is definitely part of it. Innovation is part of it. Change management is part of it. Figuring out the shared energy is part of it. But add it all up and it's a reinvention.
Awesome. I love it. That's probably the best way we could have concluded today. So let's reinvent and passionate along the way. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Awesome. I'm sure everybody enjoyed this and found it very useful.
Thank you. I enjoyed it myself.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Passion! What do you think? I would really love to hear your opinion. So do share your opinion with our Passion community on the blog below. And if you'd like more exclusive interviews, tips, tools, and techniques, then go to Moustafa.com. Until next episode, live passionately.